And good evening, everyone. Richard Cowperthwait for Northwest Access TV. Thanks for joining us for another monthly edition of the St. Albans Today show. This being Monday, October 4, 10-4. Monday, October 4. Happy to have two guests from St. Albans 10 and perhaps a late arrival from the city, but happy to have Bruce Cheeseman on the far end of the panel, the Select Board Chairman in St. Albans 10, and a first-time appearance. Happy to have Ned Connell. Ned, good to see you, the Director of Administration.
Actually, this is my second.
10. Oh, is it really?
It's my second.
Geez, I'm sorry. First time with myself, but you're no stranger to Northwest Access TV. Nice to have you guys. And again, we'll see. Maybe the city, of course, was invited to attend, and we'll see if we have a late arrival or not. Anyway, Ned, tell us about yourself. First time on the St. Albans Today show, Director of Administration. That sounds like a pretty impressive title, and it sounds like it takes in a number of things. You got a number of hats kind of in the town?
I do. I have about, the town manager jokes I have about 30 different hats.
Really? About 30,
rotating. I deal with the planning in the town, stormwater,
wow,
any bike and pet issues,
yeah,
management systems, which is just dealing with the infrastructure and whether we're good, bad, or indifferent, and just 1,000 other little things.
Really?
And it's basically every job that somebody else isn't doing, I get that job.
Interesting. So, Bruce, Ned would be the person who had formerly the job of town planner plus a lot of other responsibilities?
That's correct, yeah. He took the planner's position.
Yeah.
And you're right, plus a lot of other positions.
That's right. How does that break, again, with so many hats, Ned? Does planning get the most attention, or give us a rough breakdown of your different jobs?
Well, right now, planning is getting the bulk of my time because I'm dealing with updating the town plan.
Yeah.
But sometimes, stormwater, it comes along as the bigger issue. Right now, we're dealing with what are called ERP grants, and they're Eco Restoration Program grants.
Yeah.
And we applied for 6 back in July, and we were awarded 4 out of the 6. And so we're slowly going through the contracting process for that and some other things. And that sort of overrides sometimes the town plan update.
Right. What is it, the MS4 again, talking about stormwater?
Yes, MS4, yes.
Known as that. Tell us about it. Again, I hear that term, people hear it, and I'm not sure, I don't have as good a handle on that as I should, but it sounds like...
How's it going? Good, yeah.
And we have a new arrival here. It looks like, is that Mr. Sawyer over there?
That's right.
Good to see you. Thank you very much. I thought we might get a late arrival from the city, and we have done just that. Get your mic on, and we'll get you involved here. Ned, back to yourself. So again, the MS4 sounds like it's can be kind of an onerous thing, but give us just a capsule summary of what you're dealing with there.
It's basically, to put it in a very, very succinct thing, the EPA has come up, done studies, and done some other stuff, and basically said we're draining too quickly into the lake and causing erosion and a certain amount of pollution.
Yeah.
And they'd like the stormwater, to put it even in a tighter nutshell, is to sort of falls there, stays there, at least temporarily. So if it fell on your land, it would be metered out and phased out and flow a little more slowly and a little more quietly into the lake, causing less erosion and hopefully less pollution.
With a lot more purification as it flows, yeah.
Exactly.
To slow the flow down, yeah.
Yeah.
And are you dealing with the city with this particular issue, or?
Oh, absolutely, because it's a shared watersheds.
That's right. Chip, is that is that anything you're dealing with, or is that the last thing you're dealing with? We're talking about the runoff MS4 issues.
Oh yeah, we're doing our planning under our MS4 permit for treatment facilities we're going to have to build for our stormwater, new regulations that we're going to have to implement and follow, and also outreach and technical assistance for property owners. But it's all about, like Ned said, getting stormwater to infiltrate more when that raindrop hits the ground. If it flows, to slow it down somehow before it hits the brooks. Stormwater pollutes in 2 different ways. It pollutes by picking things up on the streets, in parking lots, on roofs, or even lawns. Yeah. Lawns aren't always great for stormwater, actually, we've learned. They pick things up, and the water brings it to the brooks, to the bay, to the lake. But also stormwater becomes a pollutant just by moving really quickly, and through that force and that power by eroding the banks of the brooks. If you can slow it down, and if you can get it to go into the groundwater instead of going to the brooks, that would be part of the developed land doing its part for St. Albans Bay.
So again, that's an issue you're spending time on, or
Yeah,
a lot? Is that
Yes.
one of your big things these days?
it's one of them. There are a lot of them these days, but yeah, stormwater is something we're doing a lot of planning on right now.
Yeah.
We're still in the planning stages. There's a lot to get ready for.
Are you facing deadlines, I assume, from the state or feds about when you have to have a specific game plan for this?
We basically have to have it all sort of done
Yeah.
in the global sense in about 20 years.
In about 20 years.
20 years.
So you gotta,
But
interesting.
it'll take us all 20 years
Really?
to, first of all, do all the infrastructure changes and all the implementation things that we need to do,
Wow.
but also to start seeing the result in the bay of improved water quality and hopefully, knock wood, fewer days of cyanobacteria outbreaks.
Yeah, it hasn't been the best summer, Bruce.
And of course, it's even a bigger issue for those cities and towns that are within a close proximity to the lake. Much bigger issue.
Yeah. Chip, give us your, I just asked Ned for his official position in St. Albans Town, Director of Administration, says he wears only about 30 hats or so. Your official position in the city is?
Director of Planning and Development.
Director of Planning and Director of Planning and Development. How long have you had that post?
6 years.
6 years, wow. A good 6 years with the city?
A lot has happened, and it has been an exciting time.
Yeah, interesting.
That's for sure.
Bruce, biggest issue in St. Albans Town as we head into early fall. You got through the summer okay, project-wise?
Got through the summer great. We got all the roads blacktop that we wanted to do, paved that we wanted to do. We had some pretty successful issues that went on in the Bay Park, both parks.
Kudos. I did my last one of my last columns on it. Talked about a portable toilet, getting a toilet down there last show, and that happened, and I think that was a very good move.
Well, a lot of credit should go to Dave McWilliams
yeah,
too,
no, David
because
pressed you on that.
he did push it. He's pressing hard.
Yeah.
He did last year, but
No, I think that's a good move, and the weather's been unbelievable. I mean, better weather in early fall than we had in the summer.
It has been. It's been a great
Probably
summer.
not helping the foliage too much, but anyway.
We also got,
Yeah.
I think it was 15 culverts replaced this year also.
Oh, is that right, 15?
So we've done pretty well. We did a little bit, I think the mileage, last time I spoke to Alan at DPW, we had about 13 or 14 culverts and about, just over 5 miles of newly paved road.
Yeah.
Really?
So it was a good year.
Interesting. I know it sounds like not your top bailiwick in terms of resurfacing, but the Lake Street work, Chip, is that apparently just about done? Any light you can shed on that? By the looks of it, it looks like it's just about done.
Yeah, VTrans has done, I think, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, we'll finish up all the major paving that VTrans is going to do on our Class 1 roads. That's Lake Street, Lower Newton, and Fairfield.
Yeah.
They will come back next year for Main Street, north and south, though almost all of Main Street.
Really?
Fairfield
Street, is that done or not? We wish not done.
It's like we should have
Wasn't that
broken a
supposed
bottle
to?
of champagne on Fairfield Street or something because it did finally get finished with the painting this year. I mean, with the paving and the painting. But when we finished it up last year, we still had that final coat of pavement that needed to go on this year. And now for the folks who live and work and visit on Fairfield Street, it is all done. You can finally just be done with it. Fairfield Street is done.
It's done.
And it's
Looks good.
and it's going to keep looking good for a long time. That we had always had problems with Fairfield Street drainage, with the utilities underneath, the quality of the pavement, the quality of the road base, and what we've done is rebuilding the street up to current standards, and it's going to look nice for a long time.
Yeah, so that should be something you don't have to worry about for quite a number of years, hopefully.
Right.
So again, one more hit of resurfacing next year on South and North Main Streets.
They will mill it down a couple inches and then put that back with new pavement, new striping, new lines. They redo all the signs. A lot of the sign work's already been done.
Yeah.
There's a part of Lake Street that's still caught up in the Catherine Federal Street project. That should be paved over in October, later this month.
Pretty soon.
Yeah, that project's coming along.
So that
pretty well.
intersection, that'll be done, or is there more work to be done there in the future?
That will be done.
Okay.
There's some work on Market Street that hopefully will be finished in November. It depends on temperatures and being able to put down that
Tell me,
final
it seems like
pavement.
this keeps going back and forth between the city and the railroad. The owner of Market Street right now is the city?
The city. And I think it's going to stay.
You guys happy to have Market Street?
I think the back and forth is done. We're happy to have Market Street back. Sometimes we wonder why the city gave it up. I'm sure there was a good reason back then. I believe it was the 80s or the 70s. But the city has it back, Market Street. We're going to put a sidewalk on it, put some new parking on it.
Really?
Yeah, sort of Market Street's finally going to, feel like a city street like all the others.
Yeah.
Get the same treatment.
So again, I'm sorry, that's next year when you'll give that especially a lot of attention, or some this year?
If it doesn't get too cold in November,
yeah,
we will be done with Market Street.
Oh, really? So you might finish that this
year. We're not going to put that pavement down if it's not going to be a good product. We'll, if we want a good product, we might have to wait till next year.
And I know that was a concern last year. I know it was in Swanton and perhaps St. Albans when the paving folks just got delayed or whatever, got here pretty late.
Yeah.
I know the Swanton folks were not at all happy about how things ended up late in November, I guess, last year.
We paved late last year and then had to go back and repave this year.
Yeah.
Really?
Take some of it up and put it back
that's
down.
you're always you need a good surface for the winter. It's always a hard call to make about paving late.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, the city's not quite happy with the Class 1 paving this year because, like you said, the contractor continued to be delayed.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why the city has said Main Street can wait till next year is because of that quality issue. Let the pavers come back next year, not under a time crunch of cold weather coming.
Yeah.
And to be frank, the community having Main Street paved on top of everything else we're doing might have been a little too much. So, spread that out to them next year.
Yeah, the city definitely you had your hands full. You were doing a lot of work. You always do. Nothing new.
For the 6 years I've been here, it's like we're rebuilding the city. There's always part of it that's being dug up.
And you think that's gone pretty about as well as expected, or as well as you could have hoped?
Yeah, it's gone really well, and I think the community likes the results.
That's right. Has your job changed a lot? It's been 6 years. I suspect it's probably gotten a bit busier, but is it still basically the same job?
Yeah, it is basically the same job. The focus is still the same. It's a big mix of planning. The stormwater became a big piece, but the bricks and mortar stuff, the actual development, managing construction projects, that's a piece that we ramped up to do. Because when I arrived in 2011, we were just starting to get ready to do the first big streetscape project, and then the TIF came, and we started doing things like the ACE property and the parking garage. But it's been a really good mix of planning, but also doing. Yeah. I've enjoyed it very much.
That's right. Ned, give us some background on yourself. Again, first time I've had the chance to meet you, interview you. Give us some. Something tells me it's going to be an interesting background, but give us a little background.
Well, grew up in central New Jersey.
Oh, yeah? My folks are both out of Summit, New Jersey, northern New Jersey.
I'm from Morristown.
Oh, really?
Two train station stops away.
That's not too far away.
Yeah. In fact, my brother works in Summit today. Moved to northern New Hampshire for a job.
And how far in northern New Hampshire?
Lebanon, New Hampshire, the Dartmouth College area.
Nice part of the world, Upper Valley.
Beautiful part of the country.
Yeah.
And started, worked for a regional planning commission there for many, many years. And after about 10 there, I started my own business. And when the economy went bad in 2007, my business also went bad.
Really?
Struggled for a couple of years with various things, and then got a job in southeastern Connecticut. And was there for a couple of years, and when I finally saw another job in northern New England, the St. Albans job that I'm at now, I jumped at the chance to come back.
And how long have you been in your current job, the town job?
13 months.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, sounds like you've got a pretty good feel for this. This is a good move, I hope.
This was a great move.
Yeah.
I love the area, and I have to say, I moved here for the lake.
Is that right?
And literally the first day I was here was a warm day for the interview.
Yeah.
I went over, said, "Oh, well, I'm here after the interview. I'll go for a quick swim." And
when was the interview?
The interview was last August.
Last August.
And drove over and immediately saw the sign, for the bacteria outbreak, and thought, Yeah, now I know exactly what I'm going to be dealing with, and I still have that water sample sitting on my shelf at home.
So I guess we can assume you did not go swimming that day.
No, actually, I went down to Georgia's beach and swam down there.
Kilcare tends to be, I mean, unfortunately, the water at the Bay Park can be a problem. Kilcare tends to be pretty good.
It is pretty good, but I didn't know it was out there, and I knew Georgia was down there.
Yeah.
But I mean, the water being bad to me was really an indication of what needed to be done, and the sort of the forward thinking that the community had, where they were going after somebody like me, who was going to help them in the city and everybody make this water better. Because really, in the whole scheme of things, the lake is nice. I love the lake, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But to me, the lake is economic development at its best. Because you could, like,
of course, the proposed marina comes right to mind. Sounds like that's likely
not even the marina I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of it more like if you were somebody who's going to move a factory to somewhere in northern New England. You could pick Barry or Montpelier or or Skowhegan, Maine for all we care.
Yeah.
But when I look at it, I say, yeah, they all have water and sewer and good power and railroad access and everything you'd want. We have a lake, and unless you're competing, it's a choice between Burlington or Portland, Maine, or New London, Connecticut. Very few towns have a nice big lake sitting in their backyard just waiting to be enjoyed. So I look
that
at
as obviously a huge resource.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, that's nice. You can move those places, but we have this.
Yeah.
That's played a big role in our sidewalk plan too.
Yeah.
Our new sidewalk.
Sounds like sidewalks are getting certainly a lot more attention in the town these days.
It's a little bit more difficult to plan sidewalks in the town than it is in the city, because of you've a little bit of construction here, development there. So it's a little bit tougher job to bring all those sidewalks together.
Yeah, it's a tough issue, but really, the sidewalks are sort of evolutionary in terms of how I look at them. They should grow. They shouldn't be disconnected, but they should grow out from the city and around the city so that you can walk where you'd want to go. So say somebody from say Collins Purley could walk downtown or walk back, or students could walk back and forth between that.
Yeah.
That's how the sidewalk should be formed, so that we can have a connected network with our surrounding communities.
Speaking of which, on that specific subject, of course, voters in the town a while back rejected the proposed rec path from Saytech to Collins Purley. Ned or Bruce, anything cooking on that front?
Yeah, actually there is. In our proposal, we'd like to do something with the Gracebrook area. Put an exit onto the interstate ramp, 19 ramp. We're also, in that project, we've also spelled out the bike path from the city to Collins Purley, running alongside the access road.
Yeah.
And it's looking pretty promising right now.
This is a project that would go to voters when you're prepared for it to go to vote. Any chance in March for that, or not that soon?
We really wanted to, but we're probably looking more like November now.
Yeah. Because
there's just a lot to it.
There's a lot to it, and one of the critical things is, in fact, it's still back in VTrans's house at this point, is figuring out what sort of traffic study they'd like to see us do. They had initially implied that a simple traffic count would have been enough right at where we wanted to put the road. But once things moved along and they saw what we were planning, they sort of hedged a little bit, and they're still discussing among themselves exactly how extensive it should be.
Yeah.
But knock wood, it won't be that big, and we'll be able to deal with it relatively straightforwardly.
Hedging slightly, but still not discouraging us from moving forward with the project. That's the encouraging part about it.
Yeah. At this point, the good old 1% local option sales tax fund got to be over $1 million at this point, I would guess. So well over $1 million.
Yeah.
It's in that order of magnitude. Yeah.
Interesting.
But there's many things we want to do with it. I mean, going back to the Bay Park.
Yeah.
We've actually set some money aside to do some improvements to what I call the bathhouse, the stone house down there.
Yeah.
So we're going to do some electrical improvements, and we are. Well, the bids are. I think the bids are still out, and maybe
they're still
now.
out for the.
And then we're going to finish the 3 stone walls for the gates, and actually we still have the.
Did some you started some seawall work a couple of years ago.
Next thing I was going to say. We probably got about 70 feet of seawall left to do.
Yeah.
And that's all doable right now. I mean, we've got the money. The the town is actually doing really well financially.
Yeah.
But we gotta spend a little bit of it.
Yeah.
You know, we got a lot of projects that that will be kicking off this spring.
Right. But the key thing, I think, from the administrative end of things is spending the money in a thrifty manner, but also as looking at it as in terms of an investment.
Yeah.
Like, if we invest the money here, will that bring, or could that potentially bring in more local option tax, so that we're not just spending it on a repair that was good and necessary, but also an investment in future gains.
And the other thing is too is we'd like to give some of that money back to the taxpayers in a form of property tax kind of relief a little bit.
Yeah.
So we've got lots of good plans, and hopefully we'll see. Like I said last time I was here, I think 2018 is going to be the year for us.
The year for the
we see a
town.
lot of things happening in the town.
Just want to mention for folks watching us live, it is a live show. If you happen to be watching right now, 527-6449 is our number. Love to get some calls. I don't want to chase anybody away, but if you're outside right now, you might take a look to your east. We have the official full moon rise tonight. I saw it come up in the kingdom last night. Nice moon, but please come back to your TV set after you check out the moon if you're doing that. Chip, I guess you can relate to sidewalk work. The city's been just a little bit busy on the sidewalk front here, huh?
Oh yeah, we have at least 2 more years of sidewalk reconstruction ahead of us too.
And will that get you, will that 2 more years, will that get you, I mean, totally up to date on the sidewalk front in the city?
That's the plan right now.
Yeah.
We did a good job with covering, I believe, all the poor sidewalks on the western side. There are more sidewalks on the eastern side. We'll find a way to split that in half. We'll tackle some of it next year, and we'll keep moving on that.
Yeah. And again, city voters, you fared pretty well with it. I can't think of an item that's gone down before city voters for a number of years now. The sidewalk bond had very decisive approval, so
Yep.
voters seem to be, happy with these projects.
Yes, they are. We get a lot of support.
I'm hearing today from a certainly reliable source on this panel, and again, I realize it's not your top issue, but apparently the city got some significant buckos for the upgrade of the wastewater treatment plant, sewage plant. Are you hip to that? Are you on top of that at all? I realize it's...
Well, I think it's public because my father just texted me about it. So I
right?
think I can say that we've received, or I think word is out that we've received some USDA money for the sewage treatment plant upgrade. A lot of thanks goes out to our delegation, of course, especially Senator Sanders for that.
Yeah. Is this money you were expecting? Obviously, you were seeking. Were you expecting this pretty much, or do you know?
I think we've gotten almost the best case scenario.
Really?
When we put this item before the voters for the bond, we were upfront. We said we're going to look for grant funding. There's a scenario where we get almost all the grant funding we think we can get. There's a scenario where we get nearly none of it, and we're more toward the first one I described.
And the bond was, I believe, what, $19 million bond issue?
I think it was 18. Or
am I
19?
off a million?
Was,
something like 18
it was,
million? Sorry.
It takes a lot to keep that sewer plant going.
Yeah.
And some of that could also be used for other things we need to do, like sewer and stormwater separation for the CSO. We'll see. We'll put the bid in for the actual upgrades to the plants and the phosphorus upgrades that we're doing to the plant. We're hoping to put it out to bid at a good time of year. Looking for some good bids, and then within that bond authority, we can also actually we might be able to steer some of it toward the water quality issues that we were just talking about.
And speaking of water, wastewater, Bruce, an issue that comes up every month. Anything new to report on the long-standing imbroglio between the city and town over water, wastewater?
No, there really isn't right now. It's
Any more talks? I know at times you've sat down and been talking with City Manager Dominic Cloud. It seems like last month or the month before you said you might, sit down for some more talks. Anything going on?
after some brief discussion with the board last Monday, it'll probably be, I'm going to be giving Dominic a call to see if we can sit down probably before the end of the month and talk a few more things over.
Yeah.
We've come a long ways with our discussions. I mean, and they've all been good. I mean, Dominic, the city has been pretty open to different things, and we've made a lot of leeway on it.
Well, of course,
I personally
the
would like
moratorium, you passed the moratorium, although it sounds like some of the folks weren't in the town, especially weren't too thrilled with the affiliation fee situation, but the
And they're still
moratoriums
not.
in the past.
Yeah. and they're still not. But you know, that doesn't stop people from. We just approved a request last Monday night for a local company for a water request through the city. You know,
Ned, anything you want to? Again, you've been on board for about a year or so. You haven't come up with a solution to this impasse in your year here.
Yeah, well, money is the solution, you know. But no, it's as long as talk is going on.
Yeah.
I take a hands-off approach and let the talk continue. Things will work themselves out.
In your many years with your different jobs, have you ever run into an issue? I mean, this has been just a long-standing. And again, the city and town, as Bruce and I assume Chip would say, get along pretty well on a lot of fronts. This has been the one issue that's just been a real tough one.
It is not unusual. Where I grew up in Morristown, New Jersey, there was the town and the township.
Oh, really?
It's essentially the same exact structural things as the city and the town. You know, a community that's a little more rural surrounding a community that's a little more urban. Not unusual. And frankly, if they want to look at long-standing history, look at the city of Groton, Connecticut, and the town of Groton, Connecticut. Their arguments have been going on since literally the Civil War.
Is that right?
And some people joke that the Civil War in that community started in 1865 and still continues today.
Interesting.
I think we've gotten past the argument portion of it.
Yeah.
You know, and I would say in the last half dozen years, situation has changed immensely.
Yeah.
I mean, we get along a lot better in many areas than what we did before.
Yeah, it's about seeking the mutually beneficial relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel, Jim? How do you feel the city and town fare in general?
I think that, you know, I think it's hard to think about any arguments or contentious issues we have right now other than the water sewer agreement. We work well, sometimes under contract, sometimes just collaboration on many different issues, and it's a reflection of necessity of being right next to each other or surrounding each other, and sometimes just, you know, being working well together.
Yeah.
But also, I think we look at it in terms of community. We look at our, you know, when people talk about St. Albans, they don't, or some people to my ears say St. Albans as terms of one unit, and we're competing against Chittenden County or Barry or Montpelier or White River, and you know, it's sort of like we'll argue among ourselves, but you out-of-towners, okay, that, you know, please don't push us.
Yeah. How, I'm curious, and over the years, at times, a number of people around here feel that Franklin County, St. Albans, Franklin County, maybe doesn't get its fair share from the state. Have you got any feelings like that? You feel you do reasonably well with the state, Ned?
I think we do okay. You know, there's sometimes, you know, the Canada starts a little closer to Burlington than.
Right. Of course, the line is Chittenden County.
Yeah, it's sort of once you get past Milton, the rest of that is Canada.
Yeah.
And you know, the same thing happens with sitting in Lebanon, New Hampshire. Everyone thought, you know, people from Concord, New Hampshire, New Hampshire ended somewhere about halfway there, or Vermont, and it's the same thing. And but I think we, in the global sense, we do as well as anybody else would do.
Yeah, Chip, your thoughts on that? How do you think you fare with the state?
I think the city is...
Of course, Governor Shumlin comes to mind. Certainly with the downtown revitalization, easy to make the case that Governor Shumlin in particular was pretty good to you folks.
He was. I think we have a lot to thank, you know, the past, you know, Scott's administration, Shumlin's administration, Douglas's administration. The state's been good. We've been good at going out and finding the programs that match up well with what we need to do, making sure the state sees that what we do with those funds and resources are what the, you know, Montpelier's policies were intended to be. There are a lot of options out there. And like you said, especially, you know, with Shumlin's administration helping us get the heavy lift of the downtown core redevelopment, the state office building, then the parking garage, then the hotel. Couldn't have done it without the state help there, and multiple departments, and you know, we owe a lot to the state workers in the city for coming along with that and being part of that big success. We still get a lot of calls of folks, sometimes the folks in Montpelier, but sometimes other municipalities that would like to talk to us about what we've done and you know, think about some of the things they'd like to accomplish elsewhere in the state. So right now things are going, you know, pretty good. We're being used as an example by the state in a lot of different forums.
Yeah. I know when that article came out in the Montreal Gazette a year or so ago, but talk about some incredibly good ink in a obviously out-of-town paper, but that was, yeah, no, it sounds like a number of folks have asked about how you managed to do what you, speaking of which, any more streetscape? What's in the offing? I'm hearing rumblings maybe Kingman Street may get some attention down the road.
We're looking at some concept plans for Kingman Street. I walked by today. We had to take a couple trees down because they weren't thriving anymore, and they were leaning over. We're looking at some designs for Kingman Street. The City Council just approved. That would be a total game changer for that street, on par with anything we've accomplished with any of the other streetscapes. To widen that sidewalk, line it with trees and the street lights. We'll be doing design for Kingman Street for at least the next year. Yeah. Looking for the, putting together the funding for construction, and hoping to construct a streetscape project on Kingman Street in 2019 or 2020. Yeah. We'll see how it goes. You got to get the right design first, and then you construct when you're ready.
So that would be the next streetscape if that's kind of on deck at this point?
Yeah, the next streetscape project.
Any other, again, there's obviously a lot's been accomplished downtown. Anything else to report on downtown, on other projects? Are you pretty much projected out pretty much at this point?
Well, we certainly have a lot we're doing. There's a lot more we want to do. We're working on a master plan for Taylor Park right now. Yeah. That's being overseen by a steering committee that meets almost once a month. That's been a project where we've seen some really interesting concepts for the park. That committee's meeting tomorrow night.
Can you be more specific at all?
Well, I think it's a combination of how can we best support the park and the things we enjoy about it now. What are some new things we could do to the park about the walkways, the circulation? Could we have a better performance space? Yeah. Making sure we take care of the monuments. And there have been some really interesting ideas put forward by the consultants for that.
Talk about just crown jewel of St. Albans City. What are we talking about? 5 acres for Taylor Park?
Yeah, it's like 4.5 acres.
4.5 or so. I think. Yeah. Let's hope we can hear this. Let's try getting our first call. Caller, go ahead. You're on.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you today?
Henry, I think I'm hearing some background noise. Can you maybe turn down something?
Hang on just a second.
I think maybe you're okay. You're sounding okay now. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. One of the things that I wanted to ask is, Chip, is the Federal Street going to get paved? Yeah, I know eventually it's going to be in the works, but that is a nasty street.
Yeah. How are you doing, Henry?
Not too bad. Yourself?
Good. It's been a while.
Yes, and I apologize for not making the meeting the other night.
Oh, yeah, I figured you had something going on. Henry is on our downtown design committee. Okay. But yeah, Henry, Federal Street, once you get past where we're working on it now, it is washboard rough in many cases. We're pretty sure we'll be able to get some Class 2 funding and to pave Federal Street next year. We're also trying to see if we can do some more sidewalk work on Federal Street next year because the sidewalks there are some gaps in the network, and I know if you try to go on those sidewalks, especially after the spring thaw, they're just covered in water and they're bumpy. So it's going to be trying to balance seeing how much sidewalk work we could do and do the paving at the same time. But I think we definitely have to pave it next year, if nothing else.
Very good. And my other question is now for the town. I think you know what I'm going to ask. Yeah. The Bay Dock. Yeah. And I'll get off the phone and let you speak. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Henry, for calling. Again, 527-6449 is our number. Anybody, Bruce, want to tackle the Bay Dock?
Bay Dock, actually, we've, I think we hired, right?
I think we're just about to hire. Actually, no, we've got the bids in. I think we're just about to hire the engineering firm along with a dive team to check out everything around that and to figure out what we have and how secure it is. I mean, it looks like it's all poured concrete, but there has been some undermining of it in a couple of different locations and some rust in various locations. But what do we have there? Is it a stable foundation to build a new platform, a more aesthetically pleasing platform on top of it. And we're still sort of kicking around whether it'll be essentially look like a wood deck on the top and be bolted to underneath what's there, or how it'll be faced in different ways.
So it basically consists of sheet piling and H-piles now.
Yeah.
So we've got to know what the condition of those are.
How old is the dock? I'm sure that's...
Holy Moses, wow.
Got some years on this thing.
Oh, yeah.
The oldest parts of it are Civil War vintage because it was they were delivering coal back then.
I guess you got to say it's probably held up pretty well given the years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So rebuilding...
it's got some damage, though, that needs to be dealt with, and it's not quite square to where it used to be. It's because it's jiggled around a little bit.
It's our goal to get it up to speed and, make sure it's structurally sound.
Yeah.
We're going to have to probably raise it a little bit, but we want it to fit into what's going on with the new marina and everything.
Let's grab another call. Go ahead, caller. You're on St. Albans Today.
Good evening, gentlemen. This is David McWilliams. How you doing?
I recognize that voice. Hey, David.
Hey, Ned. With all the stormwater problems that we have in St. Albans Town, and the city's got the same thing, the amount of money how much is it that needs to be done in St. Albans Town as far as price tag?
It's about $5 million spread over 20 years. So something like $250,000 a year that we need to spend. Wow. Now, we're planning and hoping on at least 50% of that to be taken up by either state or federal money with some grants, which we have. But at some point, we'll probably have to consider a stormwater utility or some other authority to raise money to generate funds to keep the tax rate at a reasonably stable, even amount over the next 20 years or so.
Yeah, because, if you take and put a $250,000 increase in our town budget, I think we'd have a hard time passing our budget. That's why and everybody knows that we're going to have to go to a utility tax. Some towns in the state of Vermont are already at that point. So, it's too bad that we got to go that way because, some previous developers who didn't put in detention ponds or proper drainage and stuff like that, we're going to end up as the taxpayer of the town of St. Albans, and including the city, going to have to take and correct this, or the EPA is going to come down on us like a ton of bricks.
Yet I can guarantee they're already coming down on towns in Connecticut very harshly.
The same basic issue.
Essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
And their problems are much more extensive and much harder to deal with. But if we deal with it now, it'll solve the problem. And like I said with the Bay Park, the lake is our gem. Spending money there and spending money to improve it will come back to help the grand list and help tax revenues in the future.
That's it, improving the grand list to help pay for stuff like that, because you don't accomplish anything, Dave, by creating another tax.
That's right. Mr. Chief, I also want to thank you for bringing it before the slub board in reference to having a portalette down at the Bay Park. The town and taxpayers and all the people that took care of that park to get it up to where it is, is a very nice park. And because of the fact this warm weather is here, that's why people are down there. There was 20 to 30 people on Sunday down at our Bay Park.
Well, Dave, I think we owe you a lot for that, because you've been pushing for that a lot harder than anybody has, so thank you.
Yeah, well, I was down there today. I donated 2 hours of my time. I went down there today and picked up garbage throughout the park because people are using the grills down there and putting the garbage in there. So I picked up 2 bags of garbage this morning and brought it over to the town highway garage and told Alan, I said, this came from the town park. I've been at that park since I was 14 years old, and we have a beautiful park. And also thank the slub board for putting money from Jeff Davis into that park, because that bathhouse needs a lot of work. And, and that stone work that was done near the front entrance really looks good, and everybody down in the town really enjoys that park. People are coming from Georgia. I've met people from Richford down at that park walking around. So, we've got quite an asset. It's like Taylor Park. Taylor Park looks probably the best park in Franklin County as far as the way they've taken care of it.
Yeah, you're right, Dave. I was down there quite a bit this summer, and, activities have picked up, and there's a lot more people using the park this summer than I've ever seen in the past.
Yeah, I think our highway director, Mr. Alan Master, thank God we stole him from the city because he's doing an excellent job in St. Albans Town.
He's doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, and I think Chip Sawyer, when Dominic Cloud decides to leave, of course you already know how I feel, Chip, that you ought to be city manager in the city of St. Albans.
I don't know, David. Thank you very much once again for your flattery, but I like where I am right now, and things are going good.
Yeah, well, the city's starting to look good. I was up at 3 o'clock this morning, riding around the city and town, and they were putting down the pavement marking and stuff like that. So I hope all that money can be put to good use. The city also got a, $10 million grant and plus loan for the wastewater plant. Thank God for that, because I worked down there 12 years, which I did.
Yep.
And that plant is worn out, and it needs a lot of repair and upgrade. And one of the things, Chip, you ought to look into, because of that plant, if you go down there and you look at the doors, there's floodgates. We had to put in the doors because the flooding of that brook came into the building and flooded the whole parking lot and half the plant down there.
Yeah.
So the town and city got to work together on cleaning out that brook that goes around the plant, because there's everything from wooden boats to tires to everything down behind there. Because I've been behind there when I was working there because of the beaver problems down there. And that has to be addressed, because if you put $18 million in there and you don't take care of the problem that exists around that plant, then you're sooner or later, it's going to flood and get into that main control room, and it's all over except for the crying.
Yeah, I think many people have driven down to the solid waste station down there, and half of the access roads underwater. There are definitely drainage problems. It's just another reason, and hopefully a benefit that we're going to see when the city and town are working to slow down stormwater during those storm events and keep that brook from flooding down there as much.
Yeah. Chip, are they ever going to do anything on that Lower Weldon and South Elm Street where, they have a line that's not big enough coming down where it goes into a manhole, then it goes into the brook?
That is the combined sewer overflow right there. That is where it comes out. And what we are doing is, and some of what we're doing right now on Catherine and Federal Street, is we are slowly disconnecting more and more storm drains from that combined sewer line. There's a large project that's in our plan where we would take what we've separated all the way down Lake Street from the downtown core, down Federal. We'd actually take the connection where the storm goes back into the sewer, and we would take that storm and separate it. And a lot of that we might be able to do with this wastewater treatment bond, depending on the bids we get in. But that is the very thing, Dave, that Lower Weldon and Elm Street, that is what the state's on us to solve right there. You'll see there's a little monitoring station that monitors precipitation and then also monitors every time there's a discharge. When we make a report of a discharge from the overflow, that's the station where we're reporting to the state. So yeah, that's the very thing that we need to address with the CSO.
Yeah, because that's also given us the phosphorus problem in the Bay also. Because where does that brook go? It goes right down to Lake Champlain.
Well, it certainly doesn't help.
No. So we all have to work together. I think every camp and every house in St. Albans Town and city should be tested if they're not on sewer and water lines. If they're on septic systems, they ought to be tested. Albans Today brought this up 2 or 3 years ago, where you ought to put it, test the property, then put an index card that they passed or they failed, and they had to do corrections and stuff like this. Because if we don't clean up that lake, in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we've had the signs up there of the blue-green algae, and if you go near Black Bridge, take and see all that green algae. If you ever just wanted to go on global maps, of behind Black Bridge, it'd be very interesting for you guys to look at it, and how close some of those farms are to that area. Because, one time me and George Swan and some other people took and drilled the hole through the ice and took a sample out of the bottom of behind Black Bridge, and it was just like opening up a septic tank. Ooh. That's how bad it was. So we need to clean up the lake, and we also have to have the borders work with us, the town residents and also the city residents, because if we don't watch it, that lake's going to die. Other than that, I'll stop talking so that way somebody else can call in.
Hey, Dave, I got to tell you, you look pretty good on Channel 3 News tonight.
Yeah. Well, the mainstay's open back up, but I think right now we're going to stay with our Kerry Lewis and then bring it to Burlington Main Study because I think they still got growing pains. And I was down there today walking through the shelter, and we need that shelter because what's going to happen, and it's already happening. Some towns are not using veterinarians for euthanasia, and some towns are putting them up for adoption on Facebook, but some also are putting them out of their misery by shooting them, which I'm totally against. So the town of St. Albans does very well. We bring animals to Georgia, hold them 5 days, then we bring them to the Burlington Humane Society, and it costs us $100. And when we bring a dog down there, $15 for a cat. Yeah. Yesterday, I got sprayed by a skunk. I should have came to the town select board meeting there, but you guys would have enjoyed me.
Well, thanks for calling in tonight, then, Dave. We're not calling in person.
Thanks for calling in. Again, our number 527-6449. Our number on the St. Albans Today Show. About another 15 minutes left or so. Ned, southeastern Connecticut, you mentioned places like Groton, Stonington's down that way.
Stonington and the two casinos are down there.
The two, of course, because I've been close here. I've never jumped into the casinos. Interesting.
I was there 2 years, never set foot in them once.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and I have to say, people forget how close those two casinos are. They literally.
I didn't realize they were that close to each other.
Oh, they're about 2 miles apart.
Are they really?
Yeah, from the upper stories of their two hotels, you can easily, the next big building across the river, that's the other casino.
Gambling's that big, huh?
Oh, it's huge.
Is it Mohegan Sun?
Mohegan Sun and Foxwoods, Nantucket Pequods, yeah.
Sounds like, and that's not a big tribe, aren't we? I can only assume every one of those tribe members is in pretty good shape. Would that be a good assumption, seemingly? Well, aren't there only like about 200 or 300 tribal members of that tribe?
There's 200 or 300 living on the casino property.
The casino?
And they own a casino. Huh?
Yeah, and they own the casino also. Wow. But in terms of the whole world, there's several thousand.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it depends on, what percentage of true Native American you actually are.
You've maybe touched on this, not to minimize the issues you folks are dealing with. They're certainly significant, especially when you talk about stormwater. But again, compared to Connecticut, is it a little easier to kind of deal with stuff up here with fewer people, whatever?
It is, because they are having to deal with it underground in a closed system that's underground. And that makes it very expensive. You basically have to dig it all up, put it underground, and then bury it all back in, like similar to a subway construction. Whereas we have open space or lawns and things like that, and we can deal with it a little more easily.
Interesting.
And ours is much more visible, though.
Yeah. Well, also we don't have to deal with Electric Boat or a whole bunch of other very big employers down there that are dealing with essentially top secret stuff where you have to deal with storm drainage in an area where you can only hire a certain company to do the specialized construction.
And also a question for New Hampshire. I mean, New Hampshire just kind of blows my mind. I like New Hampshire, neighboring northern New England state, obviously. My camp, which I mentioned in the Kingdom's not far from the New Hampshire border. When you said northern New Hampshire, I was wondering, wow, Coos County, you're not quite that far.
Not quite that Grafton County.
But again, New Hampshire blows a state that's about twice as many people as Vermont, about 1.2 mil or so?
1.2, 1.3, something like that, yeah.
About
twice
double, as much as Vermont. But again, no sales tax, no state income tax.
Yeah.
I realize property taxes are high. Tell me Vermont's property taxes aren't high. How does New Hampshire pull that off?
Well, actually, the city, everyone complains to me about the city's taxes being high or the town's taxes being high.
Yeah.
Compared to my taxes, I own a home in Lebanon, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Your taxes aren't high.
Okay.
You've got to go.
You really get hit on property taxes.
Here we're about, between the city and the city's at about 2.5%. We're at about 1 3/4, 1.65%. In New Hampshire, you're at about 5%.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
So property taxes are much higher. I guess that maybe answers my question then to some extent.
But I have to say, in New Hampshire, there's a balance between there's any number of people I know, myself included, who are property rich but salary poor, which is inherently bad in New Hampshire. It's better to be a little bit different than that. So, because if you're salary rich and property poor, you end up paying very little. Yeah. But you also end up paying fees for literally everything. Everything.
Sin taxes, of course, New Hampshire.
Oh, it's
obviously stopped. But actually, did a pretty nice job with the relatively new whatever rest area, welcome center, and what Hook Center thereabouts.
Yeah,
But
it's in
did a pretty
Hooks,
nice
yeah.
job with that.
Yeah, just north of Manchester. Yeah,
Yeah.
with both of them on either side of
Both
the
sides.
highway.
Yeah.
But I have to say, those two rest areas were so old and so run down, and frankly, I think the one on the eastern side was still on a septic system.
No, really.
I think it was
Really?
improved and had been band-aided any number of times. So it was good that it got done.
And of course, they
frankly,
have the state liquor stores here, of course.
yeah, and frankly, were people coming back and forth to New Hampshire from Massachusetts and Connecticut, really, once you got to that point, there was no place to get off the highway easily to get something to eat, to do anything.
Yeah.
You know, and frankly, a liquor store that's open 24 hours a day on an interstate is just not a good image for a state.
And they are open. I didn't
They're
know
open 24
have they,
hours
have they
a
been
day,
open
yeah.
24 hours for a long time?
For 20, 30 years
No, I
at
didn't.
least.
I didn't even realize.
Actually,
I don't
yeah.
tend to be going by at 2 a.m. Not that I tend to jump into the liquor stores.
But
too
just
much,
having one on the throughway, period.
Yeah,
I mean,
it just
regardless.
Yeah, I hear you. Chip, biggest challenge again. 6 years on the job. Sounds like you have plenty of things going on. And single biggest challenge out there is it always kind of a mix of things to keep track of and do.
You know, it's you know, I don't really focus too much on the challenges. We haven't really encountered anything that stopped us from doing what we want to do. But sometimes it's the time it takes to get a project from square one to fruition, dealing with permitting, dealing with agency oversight. There have been times when we really feel like a delay has been a challenge. I'd say that, and we're a community that has a lot we'd like to do. We have what we need to get it done, and there's only so much we can do at any one time. So I'd say that's it. I mean, it's certainly not the support of the voters giving us the resources we need to get things done. It's certainly not coming up with the ideas of what we need to do. It's more of just the time of making it happen, I'd say.
Yeah, Marty Manahan guested, who was our city guest a month ago, and it sounds like you've got some potential activity coming up on North Main Street, the property that the city acquired. Anything you can tell us about?
The one across from City Hall?
Across from City Hall.
I hear that there is an exciting project that is being considered. It's still a real estate deal at this point, so not public yet, but I know that parking lot and those buildings just look to folks like they're sitting there and nothing's happening, but there is something happening behind the works that could be pretty exciting.
Yeah. The Brigham Road property, Bruce, again, sounds like what we're going to be hearing is, again, interested party or party has land under contract.
That's about all I can tell you, Richard.
And you're probably not going to be able to go beyond that for a while.
No, not for a while.
Why is that?
It's the per the request of the person that's purchasing the property.
Which is to say, the person interested in the property, whatever, or is more than interested, just isn't ready to disclose what they're doing, or just not ready to move ahead with whatever it is.
No, they're ready to move ahead. For a matter of fact, it's one of the reasons why we signed an agreement with them.
Yeah.
So they could start pursuing permits and so forth. But it's just their request that it not be made public, and we signed an agreement with them, and we can't do that.
Energizer plan, again, Peerless certainly has a presence out there at this point. Are you hearing anything more about the future of the old Energizer site?
I haven't heard a word. Other than I noticed Mr. Malone has put some signs up on the lawn.
Oh, is that right?
Where the old road is in front of the Ford dealership.
Yeah. Huh.
He's got build to suit, signs there now.
Yeah. Now, have you dealt with Mr. Patrick Malone?
No, I have not, but I know that there was hearsay about various sales going on around there, and it's hearsay at best at this point.
Yeah.
But over the weekend, I saw the for sale sign go up in front of Paquin's, and
Oh, is that right?
I think that's a little more than hearsay at this point.
I'm going to be contacting him next week to see if I can set up an appointment with him to sit down and talk. He's a pretty sharp businessman.
Yeah.
He didn't buy that property for nothing.
Yeah.
He's got something in mind.
Yeah.
And we're certainly grateful that he's decided to invest in our town.
Yeah. Nothing, again, no rumblings of any activity out by Walmart still?
Not a word.
Yeah. And again,
matter of fact, nothing discouraging news.
Yeah.
I mean, the brick and mortar just isn't isn't happening right
Not
now.
the best of times for, I guess,
No.
brick and mortar.
But what is happening out towards
Yeah.
Walmart is the city and the town are together on a bicycle and pedestrian study
go.
from
Oh, really?
the downtown area out to Walmart. And
Yeah.
hopefully that will, it'll come to fruition, obviously, and hopefully it'll involve some new bicycle and pedestrian improvements to that road, but also I'm hoping for some additional streetscape improvements to consolidate some of those entrances that are a little odd, provide some better parking for the rail trail, and straighten that out and make it a lot nicer.
Yeah. The town certainly had been considering for a while kind of a parallel road to the west of Route 7, but sounds like that's getting no attention
off
these
the
days.
map right now.
Is that right, off the map?
It's off the map, but I know we were talking to somebody from the legislative delegation. I can't think of their name off the top of my head, and we brought it up, and it's still on their stuff for the long range. But really, it's a long range project. It's something that you need to keep out there and keep people involved in and keep people knowledgeable about, but understand it might be my entire lifetime or Bruce's or Chip's before we really see construction on that.
Two big things for the town right now is water and sewer.
Yeah.
And the other thing is the new town office, DPW. We are actually making some leeway with that with our new facilities
Yeah.
study group that we have. They're out actually looking for property right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
For a possible
For a
potential
possible
site for a
new town
municipal complex?
office.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
Well, either
Either or.
all together or two
Both,
separate.
or both. Again,
yeah.
talking town hall and Department of Public
Yeah.
Works.
Yeah, ultimately, I think what we'd like to do is buy a piece of property big enough so that we could get the town hall moved
Yeah.
and have it large enough so that we could, further develop it with the DPW and possibly even a fire department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Chip, that makes me think of the city's headquarters for police and fire. Certainly a headquarters of the city manager that is not real high. I mean, it just sounds like there's general agreement that it's outmoded, that you could use a much better, again, I realize that's not your main issue, but is that getting some attention? I know the Fonda Solo site's been mentioned as a possible another
That is
site
a possibility at Fonda. Yeah, we need a better facility for our officers and our firefighters. That's for sure, and all the support staff, the dispatch, everyone that does those very important jobs in the city and in the town. And we're looking at a couple different options. One is Fonda. Another is potentially just finding another site in the city that maybe it doesn't have to be building from the ground up if there's an existing facility that we could move into. So that's something that we know we need to address.
Thanks.
Obviously, you've seen what's happened at City Hall. You see what we're doing with the streets and the sidewalks. And we have not forgotten that our police and fire station is no longer working well.
Yeah.
And that will become a focus. It's already something the city's talking about seriously at the administrative level, and it will become more of a focus soon.
And that might get some more attention next year, 2018, possibly. I mean, it sounds like the issue is certainly before the city.
I would hope so. Yeah.
And speaking of the fire department, any more news on the possible merger of the city and town fire departments? Is that still moving along, however slowly, Bruce?
It's moving along. We're still working things out.
Does it sound, again, likelier than not that that'll happen? I think you said you strongly support that.
I strongly support it. I see it. I see it as a positive.
Yeah, I think it's
Positive venture.
it's a time thing. It's just
Takes a
going to take
while.
time to go through all the little nooks and crannies.
There's a
and things
lot
that
to it, though, Richard.
Yeah,
There's a lot of.
Yeah.
It's not as straightforward a thing as you might believe, but it's moving forward, and we're talking, and it does seem as though it's going to
and
get
the
to fruition.
The two fire departments, yes, they seem to be all thinking in the same frame of mind that it'd be.
And
thing
certainly,
they wanna do.
yeah, there was a large fire just recently, and I forget exactly where it was, where they worked together as if they were one department. It was almost a non-issue when
Sounds
they
like
showed up.
they work together well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on that positive, optimistic note, we'll call it a night. Thank you very much, Ned Connell. Good to see you, Director of Administration for St. Albans Town, the wearer of many hats. Bruce Cheeseman, the St. Albans Town Select Board Chairman, and Chip Sawyer. Good to see you, Chip. Thanks for coming on board, the Director of Planning and Development for St. Albans City. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks
for the calls. Thanks for watching us. Thanks to Joanne and Zach for doing all the hard work out there. I'm Richard Cowperthwait. We'll see you next month for another St. Albans Today here on Northwest Access TV. See ya.